Hey there, pirates! Welcome aboard the Anime No Mi channel. Luffy's body will be taken over by Imu-Sama, and the final battle of One Piece will be an epic mental showdown inside the Straw Hat's own mind, a war for possession of Joy Boy's body, where Imu attempts to steal the perfect vessel for his dark immortality. That's right, forget just fists and haki. The ultimate confrontation takes place on a psychological plane, with Imu infiltrating Luffy's consciousness to dominate the power of Nika, creating an internal clash that will decide the fate of the world. I hope for your support to help our crew win, and to do so, you just need to click the thumbs up button, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel. By doing this, you will win an incredible devil fruit, so just comment which fruit you want. Guys, mental battles are trending, and they have been used to conclude anime like the 7 Deadly Sins and Demon Slayer, where protagonists fight villains who invade their minds. Let's break this down with direct facts from the manga chapters, using real moments to show how Imu already demonstrates possession powers, and how Luffy, as Joy Boy in Chapter 1044, is the ideal target for a mental battle that turns the climax into a fight for the soul of freedom against eternal darkness. Imu appears as an entity beyond the physical in Chapter 906, sitting on the empty throne and manipulating the Gorosei like puppets, and in Chapter 1085 reveals a power that obliterates Lulusia with black lightning. But what is truly terrifying is in Chapter 1095, where he transforms the Gorosei into demonic forms with black flames, suggesting an ability to infuse essence into other bodies. In Chapter 1162, during God Valley, Imu possesses Saturn, releasing overwhelming haki that shakes even Roger, proving he can invade and control minds or bodies, a possession that goes beyond ordinary devil fruits. Luffy awakens as Joy Boy in Chapter 1044 with the Hito no Mi, model Nika, a fruit that Vegapunk calls the god of liberation, in Chapter 1116, making him the perfect vessel for Imu. In Chapter 906, Imu discusses the D-Clan as a threat, seeing in Luffy the ideal body to master the power of Nika without the limits of his current form. This theory gains strength because mental battles are trending, like in the 7 Deadly Sins, where Meliodas fights the Demon King within himself, or in Demon Slayer, where Tanjiro resists Muzan in his mind. One Piece could elevate this concept with Imu, attempting to steal Luffy's body to eternalize his tyranny. Imu's possession begins subtly, like in Chapter 1162, where he controls Saturn from afar, suggesting an ability that invades consciousness, perfect for targeting Luffy, who in Chapter 1044 laughs while bending reality with Gear 5, an open mind that Imu could exploit. In Chapter 1095, the Gorosei regenerate from mortal wounds under Imu's influence, hinting that he transfers essence. And in Chapter 1085, he uses lightning that erases global memories, a mental manipulation on a massive scale. Luffy, who defeats Lucci with advanced haki in Chapter 1110, has an indomitable will. But as Joy Boy in Chapter 1044, his fruit attracts Imu, who in Chapter 906 fears the D-heirs, seeing Luffy's body as an upgrade for his immortality. This initiates an internal battle, where Imu tries to erase Luffy's personality to take control, creating a psychological confrontation that will determine whether the world sinks or is freed. The mental battle fits with One Piece clues, where in Chapter 597, Rayleigh trains Luffy in haki, teaching that will shapes reality. A foundation to resist mental invasions like Imu performs in Chapter 1162 with Saturn. In Chapter 1044, Luffy's Gear 5 transforms the environment with imagination, a mental plane that Imu could invade, similar to how Muzan manipulates Tanjiro, forcing Luffy to fight against visions of tyranny within himself. Imu, who Vegapunk accuses of sinking the ancient world in Chapter 1116, wants Nika's body to rewrite history, possibly starting the possession after Luffy touches the One Piece in Chapter 967 Roger style, where truths open mental portals. This internal fight would be epic, with Luffy using Joy Boy's laughter to repel Imu, like Meliodas resists his father, turning the climax into a war for the soul, where Conqueror's haki in Chapter 1047 against Kaido is just the appetizer. Imu, as a possessor, gains foundation in Chapter 1160, God Valley, where he uses Saturn to release power that shakes legends, suggesting an eternal fruit or ability that jumps between bodies, perfect for targeting Luffy, who in Chapter 1049 defeats Kaido with pure determination. In Chapter 1095, the Gorosei Mu, Nasujuro, and others transform under Imu's command, hinting at remote control that could evolve into total invasion of Luffy, whose rubber body in Chapter 1044 is flexible even in mind, allowing Imu to infiltrate darkness. The mental battle would begin with Imu weakening Luffy physically, like in Chapter 1085 with lightning, opening a window for possession, forcing Luffy into an internal realm where he faces visions of Imu as King of Shadows, resisting with memories of allies from Chapter 580 in Marineford or Chapter 1054 as Yonkou. At first, a battle of cosmic and psychological proportions between Imu and Luffy makes perfect sense within the One Piece universe, where the physical and metaphysical are deeply connected. The moment Luffy awakens as Joy Boy in Chapter 1044, the manga not only reveals the limitless potential of his body and spirit, but also shows that his mind and will are instruments capable of reshaping reality. This alone is a clue that a mental war could be the ultimate climax of the series. The fight would no longer be merely a contest of physical strength or skill, but a confrontation of ideals between the freedom represented by Luffy and the tyranny of Imu, personified in his obsession with absolute control. The moment when Luffy, upon awakening as Joy Boy, becomes capable of distorting reality around him with the power of Gear 5, one of the most significant moments in the manga so far, is a clear example of how his mind, connected to his power as the god of liberation, Nika, directly impacts his surroundings. If Imu, with his ability to control and possibly possess bodies, were to enter Luffy's mind, this mental battlefield could involve Imu attempting to take control not only of Luffy's body, but of the very essence of freedom that Luffy carries as Joy Boy. In this context, Imu would be a force trying to suppress Luffy's ability to imagine a world beyond the chains of tyrannical power. As you mentioned, Imu's possession power is more than just a physical control trick. The fact that Imu subtly and remotely controlled Saturn, unleashing a destructive power that shook even legendary figures like Roger, implies that Imu is not limited to manipulating only bodies or physical elements. This power seems inherently psychic, transcending physical boundaries, which becomes even more evident in scenes where he can erase entire memories, wiping out realities with his black lightning. This ability to erase or alter memories carries a strong mental component, something that could serve as a direct point of attack on Luffy's mind during the battle. Imu would not just try to control his body, but attempt to suppress his memories, erasing the very foundations of his identity. This psychological confrontation, however, would not be limited to Imu's ability to manipulate Luffy's mind. Imu, as you correctly noted, has a deep fear of the D-Clan, and throughout history, this fear is reflected in his efforts to eliminate any threat to his dominion. Luffy's body, now imbued with the power of the Hito Hito no Mi, model Nika, would be seen by Imu as the key to his immortality and eternal rule. The battle would not be merely for control of the body, but for Luffy's soul, with Imu trying to subjugate his will and replace the Straw Hat's essence with a distorted version, a life without freedom, without laughter, without joy. Imu seeks to corrupt what Luffy is at the deepest level, something made clear in Chapter 906 when he discussed the D as a threat. The mental battle would not only be a fight for domination, but also for the representation of what D stands for in the world. The clash between the tyranny Imu seeks to maintain and the liberation Luffy embodies as Joy Boy. In this psychological battlefield, the true fight would be for the freedom of the mind and the preservation of hope. The concept of Conqueror's Haki also plays a key role. In Chapter 1047, when Luffy uses his Haki to resist Kaido, it becomes clear that the strength of his will is a way to conquer the reality around him. Imu, therefore, would have to find a way to break that will to extinguish the flame of resistance that Luffy carries. The fact that Luffy can use his laughter to shape reality in his own image, creating a mental playground with Gear 5, could be the key to his final resistance. During the battle, Imu would likely try to weaken Luffy's mind, perhaps using his ability to inflict emotional pain through visions of suffering, such as the trauma of Ace's death, a fundamental loss that Luffy never fully overcame. This would be an attempt by Imu to erode Luffy's spirit, removing his willpower and with it, his ability to resist control. However, Luffy would not be easily defeated. On the contrary, he would draw strength from the memories of his allies and the teachings of figures like Rayleigh, making the fight not only a matter of psychic power, but also emotional endurance. Within this internal battle, the aid of his memories, both of suffering and of hope, would serve as his anchor. The presence of friends like Zoro, Nami, and Sanji, as well as the memory of Ace's smile, would guide him in keeping his mind intact. When he fights Kaido, for example, he is not only using physical strength, but the entirety of his being, his connection to his friends, and his determination to never let darkness prevail. This would be crucial in the mental confrontation against Imu. Finally, the idea that Luffy can transform reality through the power of Gear 5, especially in terms of controlling mind and perception, makes the final battle more than a contest of raw power. It would be a war for Luffy's very soul, with Imu trying to replace the essence of Nika with a distorted version of freedom. A freedom under absolute control, devoid of true joy. The fight would be for the freedom and identity of Luffy within his own mind. That was today's content. We hope you liked it and want to share your opinion on the subject. Don't forget to share the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and stay amazing.